So, hi everyone. It's Rahul Agarwal this side. I'm from Designhill. Rashmi had to. She fell sick and she couldn't make it today, so I'm just filling in for her. But we're very excited to have Jacob Cass here with us today from Australia, and as we can see, there are a lot of audience have already joined us. So I'm just going to give a slight introduction about Jacob. He's a TEDx speaker. He's been featured in a number of international publications like Entrepreneur, Forbes, and he's been featured in many books. Many of his notable clients include Nike, Disney, Nintendo. He's recently done a great job for San Francisco, designed the branding. He runs his own creative agency called Just Creative, and he's also a globetrotter. You should check out his blog. It's called Just Globetrotting. And so we're really excited to have Jacob with us today. He'll be sharing some great insights. He has a presentation for us. And so over to you, Jacob.
Cool. Thank you for that intro. And I'm very excited to talk to you as well, everyone here. There are tons of people coming in now, and it's great to see. Hello, hi. So today, it is about how to create a thriving brand. So it is tailored towards designers, but it also has principles for other businesses as well. So I want it to be an open flowing conversation. So if there's questions along the way, just put it in the question box or in the chat. But if there are definitely questions, put in the questions section. Otherwise, just leave your comments in the chat. It's not really a formal presentation. It's just some dot points, and we'll have a chat about things that works for me and how other designers or business owners can create their brand, thrive and grow. So I'm just going to open my keynote. You should be seeing my screen and go through some of the presentation. So you already had the, let's go. Okay, cool. So how to build a thriving brand. I'll skip through all my intro and stuff because you heard that, but some of my work, I'll just very briefly go through this before jumping in the presentation, just so you have a bit of context of who I am and what background I'm coming from. So I run a blog called Just Creative. I've been doing it for 10 plus years, and it has tons of resources on there, a lot of free ones and on all sorts of subjects. So check that out later. But that's what I've been doing the past 10 years or so. And that's really how I've grown my business. And that's the context of this presentation. I'll be sharing about how I've built up a brand as a designer. So how I've got clients, how I've built up my business, how I've got a following, and how I continue to grow as well and evolve my business. So these are some of the select clients. This is some recent work for San Fran that Raul just mentioned, and some work for Puerto Rico and a few other clients. So I'm not really going through my work today. It's just to give you some context of what sort of work I do. It's a lot of logos, a lot of branding. I've done packaging. I've done websites. I've worked in New York for 5 years as an interactive designer, so working for all the big brands like Nintendo and Jerry Seinfeld and people like that. And now I've been running my own business called Just Creative, more full time now for the past 5 years. I always lose track, and throughout that time I've been traveling as well as a digital nomad. Went to probably about 80 countries over the past 4 years while running this business. So that's my background, and the topics today. It's really about growing that thriving brand and how I did that and what techniques I used as well, and how you can do it as well and build it into your business and how you can get top tier clients. And I want to touch on brand strategy. This is something I've been getting into recently versus just providing logo and identity services, going deeper with brands and offering a more holistic solution to their needs versus just the surface level side of things of a brand with such as identity and logo. So I'm going to touch on that, as well as the branding design process, and your questions as well. So I'll have a check-in on if there's any particular questions, but this is the brief overview of today, and I'm just making stuff up as I go. There's no formality to it. I've got a couple of slides here, but to kind of jog my memory, but this is what I consider a thriving brand. Everyone will have their own idea, but I try to define it very quickly with a couple of dot points. And I think what a thriving brand would be, they would have a steady stream of clients, hopefully high value clients. The word high value is going to be different for everyone else because, well, for everyone actually, because what I consider high value may not be high value to someone else. It actually may be too low or too high. So keep that in mind we'll take it with a grain of salt. So it's all relative to what you consider high value. A thriving brand is purposeful and it's on a mission and it has a greater purpose. It's not just there to make the cash monies. It's really to serve a bigger purpose. And I think we have, us as designers, we do have a privilege of making the world a better place through design and proper branding. And business can really do good for the world. And I'm a strong believer in that. And that's really why I'm getting into this brand strategy side of things a little bit more, to go deeper with these clients and to ensure that they do make the world a better place through great branding and great business. So won't get too much into that, but that's my understanding. A thriving brand has a connected audience. So not just customers, but people that are listening to you and they want to listen to what you have to say. They're not just your customers. They're there to connect. So that's what I consider a thriving brand. A thriving brand has steady growth, doesn't plateau, doesn't decline, or hopefully not. It's thriving. So it's steadily growing, at least moving in the right direction. A thriving brand could be considered influential. It doesn't have to be, but it's a word that came to mind. And a thriving brand, I think, would have balance. And for the owner, at least, or some people, you don't want to be overworked and underpaid. So there should be some balance to whoever owns the brand behind it. So that's kind of a little bit behind the scenes of what makes a thriving brand. So the word brand here I'm using loosely. So I think the number one burning question I get is how to attract high value clients. And by definition, I'd say a high value client is someone that, let's say you could live off the wages for a month based on the one job. Let's put it in that way. Obviously that's very debatable, but how do I attract high value clients? So working with clients such as Disney, Nintendo, Jerry Seinfeld, they didn't come to me directly. So I want to be very transparent about this. I worked with these big name clients through an agency, and I worked with a team, and I worked with creative directors, art directors, and all these people bringing these clients together, because obviously you need a team to serve these sorts of clients. But then again, there's other high value clients such as San Francisco and Puerto Rico and whatnot that they came through me to my agency directly to Just Creative, but it was through a subcontract. So another agency hired me, Just Creative, to work for them, who was working for San Francisco. So you have to consider when you're getting these clients, it's not actually you working with them all the time one-on-one. It's through sub-relationships, and that's important to consider. And creating those relationships is really what it comes down to. A lot of it is marketing, but if you look at the root of it, it's about relationship building. And if you can create those relationships and not just be an order taker, that's really what's going to make you up your business and get to the next level. So keeping these things in mind, I'll come back to marketing. And I've always been about giving them value away for free. Ever since I started my blog, I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, but now this whole world is very apparent now. But back in the day, let's say 10 plus years ago, I was just sharing my resources on my blog. I was getting comments and traffic just because I was sharing my learnings through university at the time. And through that process, I was getting traffic to my site. I was getting clients because of the value I was sharing. I was actually educating people on what I do. And through that, it positions me as an expert. You can get some influence from followers, and kind of that snowball effect happens. So that's marketing in some parts of marketing. I'm actually just going to jump back into questions to see if there's anything that's come up so far.
Let's ask. So guys, if you have any questions, please post them in the questions tab, and Jacob can take them as and when we have them here. So I think there's still we're at the beginning now. So if we cover a certain part of the presentation, I think then we can stop for a quick Q&A, Jacob.
Okay, cool. All right, so the giving content away from free, it's called content marketing these days. It was called blogging back then. So content marketing is huge, and you really do need a strategy to know what you want to achieve or who you that's based on who you want to target and what you're trying to get out of your marketing. So I presume there's a lot of logo designers here just based on the profile. So I'm just going to use that as context. So if you're trying to target businesses that just need logo design, they're going to be looking for that one thing, but you could also upsell them on that as well, so that they could sell them an identity or a website or whatever it may be. And I've kind of lost my train of thought of where I was going with that, but whatever it is, or wherever they or however they come to you, it is about relationship building. So they may come to you with a logo, they want a logo design, but you should ask them why. Why do you need a logo design? What's the purpose? What are you trying to achieve with the logo design? And you'll soon realize they need more than a logo. They're trying to build their business. They're trying to they're trying to make sales. They're trying to get brand awareness. They're pretty much trying to do what we're trying to do, but for their business. So you need more than just a logo. And that's really, if you keep that in the back of your mind, you'll have a different perspective on how you're treating your business rather than just selling logos. So that's one thing to consider in that context. I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing. So I'll show it with context of my website. So this is just how I do it. It's not perfect, but it's a way to share. And so the website I just recently updated, and I just recently read Story Brand by Donald Miller, which is an excellent book. If you haven't read it, I'd definitely recommend it. So the website update was basically making the customer the hero versus selling your service or selling just what you do. So it's all future tense. It's building a brand that your customers will love. So I'm speaking directly to the customer here, positioning myself as the guide or the expert. So I'm kind of in the background, but the focus is always on the customer. The customer is the hero. So this website, it talks about the customer. There's some benefits of what I'll do for them, growing their brand. I'm not just talking about logos here. I'm talking about building their brand as a whole and really being a brand consultant versus just a designer. So consider that, well, you're more of a partner versus a designer. So if you think about the positioning yourself that way, you can come across as an expert and a guide, which will guide them to or transform their business to a successful business. So I'm just going to highlight a few things that I've put on my site to really sell this idea and position me as the expert and help them get to the next level. So scrolling down, you'll see logos of some notable companies. This is to establish credibility. If you're doing this yourself, you can use logos from wherever you may have been featured, such as a design website, or maybe if you haven't been featured yet, you could feature clients that you've worked on. This is just to establish credibility. So further down the page, I'll have a call to action to capture their email address. So this is a way to get leads and to ensure that you can always have that connection with the potential client or maybe another designer. So my website is positioned to help business owners and designers, and that's why I have this box that is kind of tailored to both of them. So it works for designers, it's all about branding, and you capture their email here. And I think it's a win-win for everyone that get a ton of value from signing up. You guys can sign up after this as well. There's tons of freebies in there. So you'll notice the website positions me as the guide, focus on the benefits of them. There's some clout. There's a call to action to ensure that I am connected with them. And then it goes through kind of selling what I do. So I design brands that stand out. I'm not talking about logo design here yet. I'm talking about branding as a whole. I talk about brand strategy, identity, design, and touch points. So this is how I personally break up my services. I just keep it under 3 umbrellas. You'll see logo design is here. Brand development is here. So there's also a call to action as well. So the reason I'm showing you all of this is because selling yourself is marketing, and it's how you're going to get clients. And this is how you're going to get those big name clients or higher value clients. It's how you talk about yourself on your website. So you really need to study other people's sites to see how they talk about themselves, other agencies as well, especially because they do it as well. But you need to do it what's right for your audience as well. So keep all that in mind. Following on down the page, I'm showing some empathy on the page with clear messaging. It kind of talks their pain point of slowing down their growth, stop wasting time, and then I talk about the benefits that I'm going to give them. And this comes back to, I'm not just providing design services, I'm providing a cohesive solution, holistic solution to their problems. And it's not just about design. So that's really why I'm blending this strategy and design and talking about it as a solution. So create a standout brand through strategic thinking and memorable design. And then I make it easy for them to understand how I'm a guide, and I'll guide them through the process because they want to know they're going to get handheld through the process so that transformation happens and their brand will grow. So I have a call to action to book a call. I used to use a questionnaire. I've recently changed to a call because I am now not traveling. I have more time to talk to clients, and you can build that relationship as I mentioned earlier. And it's a 3-step process. You have the call, then I get into strategy and brand design, and then I get into growing the business. So very simple to understand. Obviously, there's much more behind the scenes that we do, but on the surface, it should make it simple for them. And this all comes down to marketing. Scrolling further down the page, I talk about who we work with, just because this comes down to niching as well, or niching, as they say in America. But I personally have a wide net for my business, and I don't have any particular niches per se. Like I don't work in restaurants or health or anything. I have a very wide net. This approach doesn't work for everyone, so I do recommend at least considering finding a niche that works for you. The reason it works for me is because I have the 10 years plus of content and search engine rankings that allow me to do this. So whenever I'm talking about this sort of stuff, you have to think that not everyone's going to have the same background as I, and it's not what works for me isn't going to necessarily work for you. So consider about your niche and who you work with. Maybe it's just startups, maybe it's small business, or maybe it's vegan restaurants, for example. Some more clout, past clients that I've worked with, and then I get into my work where they can click through to my other projects. Again, I'm selling more down this page, why just creative, and more call to action. So you'll notice throughout the whole page, I have this very consistent call to action. So they can call me, book a free call straight away. And even more clout here. The more trust you give the user, the more likely they're going to reach out and contact you. So showing your awards, showing your experience, showing your social media stats. If there's anything unique to yourself that makes you different, such as traveling, for example, you can put it here. You can have your happy customers and maybe some clever copy somewhere. So all of this is really marketing, selling your services, showing the potential client how what value you offer them. And you can show this further by highlighting testimonials. I also bring in some, as I was saying at the start of this talk, like I'm a big believer of business is good for the world, and this company called B1G1 is a kind of like a charity that I work with, and I donate for every project that I finish with clients. I donate, and in different ways. So you can see this little widget here. It shows where I've done that. So I've just recently integrated this in my business, and they have tons more tools that you can check out. But it's just something I believe in, and it takes that the reason you're in business a little bit further, the purpose. And it's not just about making money, it's about providing more impact for the world. And this is something I'm really trying to integrate into with my clients as well these days. And then just blogs and some featured resources. So if they've got to this page, maybe they want to know how much for a logo, they want to see a case study, or maybe they want a free book. And then a huge call to action there at the bottom of the page. So this is my marketing website homepage, kind of broken down. It's all about the user and what they can get out of it. So a future tense statement: create a brand your customers love. It's not hire me, I'm a logo designer. It's a cohesive line that is for their customers and their business. So that's my breakdown of my website. Jump back into Keynote.
I think we can, Jacob, first of all, that there were a lot of good insights there, because I think what you showed to everyone today was, how, because as a designer, your website sort of represents, in a lot of ways, your work, your portfolio, your customer testimonials, social validation of your work through, the metrics. And so, having a proper website, having a proper interface where, your customers can, whoever you're driving customers from, because these days there's so many channels that you can drive customers to your web page or to your website from social media, from blogs, from paid mediums. And therefore it's really important to have that interface, a professional looking website with all the information that you can. And as you said, when I am also looking at your website, it looks like, okay, you're a proper agency and you have experience in more ways than just doing a logo. You're a complete brand agency, and that's the impression that's coming across. So I think that's really important, and I feel that that's what any new upcoming designer or even professional designers must focus on when they're starting there or when they're trying to build a brand. So I think we can take a couple of questions here before we go ahead back into the presentation.
Okay. All right.
Any question that you're interested in?
It's loading the question section. It just cut out for a hot second, so it's just loading again. It says a web page is slowing down, but I'm only on this page, so I don't know. Okay, it's loading now.
So are you in the question section?
Yes, it's just loading. It's the Australian internet. Okay. It's not so good. Okay, so I've got a couple here. So upvoted number 3. What are your thoughts on focusing branding, branding? Start live answer. Okay. What are your thoughts on focusing branding, marketing to startups and small, medium enterprises? Do you think it's give them an excellent job for lesser cost in support of their vision? Or do you think it's a good niche to place yourself as an upcoming brand strategist? There's no right or wrong answer to that, because your niche, you could be right or wrong for anyone, and who you target, I don't know your expertise, so it's hard to say where to focus, but wherever you do decide to focus, you really need to get to know the customer and the audience and how they think, where they hang out, and really get to know them. So to bring that give that some context, let's say you want to do branding for restaurants and it's for vegan restaurants. Where do vegans hang out? What boards do they hang out on? What groups on Facebook? where can you go find these guys? They're probably on a Facebook group somewhere talking about how bad meat is or something like that. So you can go there and see what they're after and target to them that way. Maybe it's not like a startup per se, but it could be a cafe or a restaurant, if you will. So just that one context, one answer to one context. So I'll go to the next one. So do you start like that? So.
Yeah.
Do you think in order to succeed as a designer, it's important to build good relationships with agency people? So you have to have work ethics and a good job. So there's different ways. You'd have to be quite, I'd probably say at least an intermediate level designer to be able to work with agencies, because they do require top tier work because they're working with that sort of caliber of clients, and obviously they have bigger budgets and they need to have talented designers. So you can be successful without working with agencies for sure. So don't get too hung up on that. That will come later down in your career. And yeah, you can reach out to these agencies, show them your work, and create relationships based on the agency of the people. So getting your foot in your door that way is a definitely good way to approach it.
Okay. I think there is another question from Anna, which is quite relevant. She says that, what's happened when you're starting new and you have no material, in the sense that you don't have customer testimonials or you don't have any resources that you created. And I think it's a really important question for a lot of guys who just, probably in the nascent stages of their career.
Yeah, that's a good question. And just to give you some confidence, we all started from nowhere, to be honest. And you're not going to have the most amazing work, even though you may think it is. In 5 years' time, you'll look back on it and laugh, believe me. I do that even like a year or two later. So in terms of starting out, you'll create a body of work. And if you're at design school, you do it in school. We'll have projects that do that for you. But if you're self-learning, whether it be from online courses or YouTube videos or whatever, you're going to have projects that you can put up. Maybe they're not for real clients, but you can build your portfolio up that way. And whatever you put in your portfolio is what you're going to get hired for. So keep that in mind. If you just want to do logos or identities, then put that in your portfolio. If you're focused on illustration, then focus on that, obviously. So you're going to build up your portfolio, and over time, you can still build up your site and your marketing materials based on who you're trying to target, and send your messages or create the right messages based on your audience, and then build your portfolio based around that audience and what you're trying to achieve. Then you can get testimonials based on clients as they come in, and you'll build yourself up slowly but surely, and you'll start to make a name for yourself. So, I didn't talk about this yet, and I was going to talk about it next, but it's with social media, and I find a lot of people focus too much on social media these days without focusing on their core product, so their website and core offerings. And social media should really be after you've done all of that. Don't even worry about or think about social media. You really need to focus on your business and get that messaging right to begin with, and then use social media as a way to eventually drive some traffic. But to put that in perspective, my site gets, say, 300,000 a month, but only 1% of that is from social media. So the rest is from search. So my site's ranked for search. So it's just a little tidbit. Don't rely on social media. It's a good marketing tool, but it's not a perfect way to make clients, and it takes a lot of time. So keep that in mind.
So I think what you're trying to say here is that the first and the foremost thing is that users or anybody who's trying to create a brand, they first have their brand identity, their website, their interface sorted out, and then and social media only complements that to the extent that you can probably use it as a brand awareness tool, and you can drive some traffic out of it, but eventually it might not lead into a the requisite ROI. You might not get as many customers from social media, but definitely it's something that you need to complement your brand strategy.
Exactly. Yeah, well summarized. So
Okay, great.
there's a few others.
So I think, Jacob, let's get into the presentation again, and we can take some of the questions in a bit if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no worries at all. Upvote your favorite questions so they come to the top.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we spoke about relationship building, inbound and outbound marketing. So I was kind of just touching on it then in terms of inbound and outbound. So what that means is inbound is the clients come to me, they find me, they're searching for me. So for example, logo designer, Sydney, for example, and my name comes up. This is just all speculation, but they find me based on their search. So that's inbound versus outbound is kind of like cold calling, and I'm searching for clients myself. So far, I've only ever really done inbound marketing. I haven't done much. I have never paid for advertising, but I'm starting to learn from a few others, from actually a guy called Mash. He's teaching me about outbound marketing more now. So I'm not an expert in that area. I don't try to be, but what has worked for me over the past decade has been inbound marketing based on content marketing. So blog articles, resources, social media, and all that sort of stuff. That's how I attract clients, and that is what inbound marketing is. It's a big subject, but you can have a look through my site to see what kind of content I put out there to attract clients, and some is tailored towards designers, some is for clients. But if I was starting out from the beginning, I'd probably to focus more on client content, so and be smarter about that sort of thing. But you can always say these things when you're in this position now. But putting that content for clients. So for an example, if they came to your website and you had a free ebook, is like top 5 branding mistakes all small businesses make. They're like, oh, I have to get this PDF, enter your email, and then enter their email, and then you have their email address. The email you send them, the welcome email, could have information about your services and obviously the lead magnet you just used. And you start to build a relationship, and you can have something called an email drip campaign, which is basically a series of emails that come over over a period of time into an inbox, and that's called nurturing. So that way you are top of mind for your services for that person, and the aim is for them to eventually, when they do need your services, to hire you. So you can see how I do it, how I do this sort of email nurturing on my site. When you sign up for the briefcase, you'll get a series of 6 different emails, providing free resources with a tiny call to action if they ever do need my branding services to contact me. So that's just one way that I use that mechanism. So if you do want to learn about that sort of stuff, check out services such as MailChimp, or I use Aweber. There's tons more out there. But yeah, that's another topic in itself. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of information I've given you here, and it's going to be overwhelming. But at least you don't know until you know. So now you know about the different strategies you have. You can focus on one and see what's right for you. So I've already spoke about your website marketing material, not using social at the beginning, using content marketing. Talked about email nurturing, or email drip campaigns and email nurturing. And I've talked about relationship building and coming across as an expert and not just an order taker about doing just a logo, but position yourself as an expert and being a partner with them. And once you've got the client and they want to quote, then you come into pricing and proposal. So this is another way to grow your business. And this is another topic in itself. So I'm giving a lot of high-level overviews here. Pricing is a difficult topic. And what's right for someone, like, it's different because everyone's at different levels, and there's different techniques you can use, and you have to judge it by the client and all of that. But there is a great book, Price. I haven't read it all myself, but I've heard great reviews, and just telling by who I follow, Michael Janda is his name, and his Instagram account is More Janda, and he's been pumping out amazing content with pricing and working with clients and everything. So I'd definitely go check him out. He's got a whole book on pricing, and I'd recommend go read that because you'll learn a lot, much more than I could tell you in this short presentation. Pricing is a totally other thing. Chris Du also has a webinar coming up with design cuts in a couple of days, I believe, and he messaged me saying he was doing it on negotiations and pricing, so that would be a really good one to watch through Design Cuts Live conference. So check that one out. I'm sure there'll be a replay online somewhere too, but I don't want to get too much into pricing for this. This is too big. So I'll jump, I think my next slide is brand strategy. So I'll jump back into the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll go with the top up vote. All right, as an experienced brand specialist, what are your best 3 professional skills you love most and are always happy doing? Sometimes so much can be overwhelming, so I'd like to know how you focus on these, please. So naturally, I've always been attracted to educating people, and I learn by educating and what I learned at the time. So I've already spoke about some things that I'm learning at the moment, like such as brand strategy. I just shared my journey with people, and I'm not, like, I've been doing branding for over 10 years, but there's still so much I'm learning, and you grow as a designer by following different people and learning from other places and just growing always learning. So in terms of my professional skills I love, I think at the pure essence of it is design, and everything comes back to design, really. So I've always had a passion for logo design and branding and helping or building identities. So I love typography, I love design as a whole, and I love logo design. So I think those 3 are there, and teaching by educating. So those I'm always pretty happy to do, and I just find myself doing them without even thinking about it. I get into a flow, and that's just me. I could go work all day and not even realize it. So that's it.
Okay.
So, okay. Scrolling through the questions.
So there is, if you don't mind, there's one question I wanted to ask you, Jacob, and it's something related to what you've been talking about today. Is when for example, for any business or as a freelancer or as an agency, I think building customer personas is really important, and that's what you've been doing, and because of that, and that's probably linked with how you're creating content for your audience, isn't it? I mean, if you know what are the pain points of your customer, of your potential customers are, what are the what exactly they're looking for, and if it may not be exactly related to your space, like for example logo designing or branding, but if they are looking for a solution in their life or in their business, and if you provide valuable content for them, I think that's a pretty great way to attract customers, isn't it? So if you can so how do people how audience, or how can users think of or create personas? What are the things that they should be looking at? Because I think that's really essential when you're starting out.
Yeah, so personas, if people aren't aware, is really defining who your audience is based on a persona or a character. So it's a fictional, let's say Bob, and he has all these attributes such as his demographic and his, you can go real deep with personas, but it could be where they hang out, it could be their age and economic status and all those sorts of things. And you really define who your character is, and that way you can better target them with your messaging and your positioning, and it's really the essence of how you or position your business. So creating personas is important when you're doing branding, and you don't have to go as deep as some people do, but it does help. But at least having an idea of who your target audience is crucial, because otherwise you're just shooting in the wind or shooting in the dark, if you kind of join two things there. And yeah, just look up customer personas. There's tons of resources out there, and it'll really help you understand the thinking behind it. I think HubSpot actually has a cool tool I just came across recently, because I use their email signature service, and they also they followed up with an email about customer personas just last week. So you could check that out. Yeah, HubSpot.
Yeah. By the way, we also have an email signature service.
From HubSpot?
No. We have our own Designhill. So we created one for our customers. Again, so that was something that we did to provide value to our customers. So we created an email signature tool completely free, because there were a lot of professionals that they were our target audience. So we created an email signature tool for them, and so it's completely free to use. And yeah, so again, for us, then it works to get leads, and then again the nurturing process. So yeah, everything that you said completely makes sense, and that's how it is. You have to provide value, and you can't just do cold selling or hard selling all the time. You have to provide valuable content to your target audience, and eventually hope that they'll remember you when they need your services.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just another idea there. Creating a tool or a widget or whatever instead of like a PDF that's more interactive. So
yeah.
All right, I'll jump back into, see if there's one more question, and I can jump back into Inception. Okay. So I answered that one. Okay, have you started anything? Okay, let's just go that one. That's upvoted. Have you studied for anything from what you're doing those days, or is this a self-taught process? What was your starting point? So in high school, I didn't even know design was a career. I was just attracted to creative subjects. I repelled from sciences and all that. So I think a lot of designers have a similar story. But eventually my career advisor told me about graphic design being a career, and that really opened this world up to me, and I decided to go to university to study. I studied 3 years at the University of Newcastle in Newcastle, Australia. And then after that, I moved to New York, and I learned everything else on the job in New York. Worked for a number of different agencies, and one agency for about 4 or 5 years. And that's where I learned a lot, much more than you learn in design school. Just being on the job, you learn. And like for anyone that is coming out of design school or is self-teaching, to get some experience in an agency first, because you'll learn so much more from people smarter than you around you. So that's the process. But in the past 5 years, everything else has been self-taught at home, learning from books, websites, other people, just being a sponge and self-teaching. And I don't think we should ever stop learning. We always can learn something new, and you always keep practicing. So that's my answer.
Okay, so I think we can head back to the presentation, and then we can take some questions.
Okay, great. So I can't even remember what. So how long do we have on here? I'm not keeping track.
We have another 15-20 minutes, but we generally these get extended by another 10 minutes or so. So you can take your time. You can cover whatever you want.
So yeah, I just put a ton in here just in case I ran out of things to say. But so brand strategy, and this is as I mentioned, something that I'm studying or learning more about recently in the past 6 months. So I put out a few interviews and workbooks and content on this recently on my Instagram and blog and stuff. So you can read more about that later. But the idea of brand strategy is, as I mentioned at the start of this talk, about going deeper with your client to provide a more valuable or deep service for their brand rather than just the surface level identity. So when you learn about how deep brand strategy can go, you'll be incredibly amazed at how much you actually didn't know. And I'm saying this from experience because I've been doing this for 10 plus years, but there's still rabbit holes to go down to learn about. So brand archetypes and different customer personas and mission statements and vision statements and that sort of stuff that you've probably been a little bit aware of, but the processes and workshops and know how to actually figure this sort of stuff out can be quite time consuming, and it can go quite deep, and the more you know, the more you know. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my learnings recently about brand strategy, and so you're aware of it as a service. And I think us as designers, we do need to really position ourselves as experts and guides to these customers, and not just be a designer. We need to be a partner with our customers and really partner with them to grow their business, not just provide a design service. So that's really where I am focusing my efforts, because to be honest, the design industry is going to be very pressured with all these new design tools coming out that make design accessible for the masses. And what we did, say 2-3 years ago, the value has decreased because people can get it free or very cheap on services such as Canva, for example, and they're not going to pay a designer to do their flyer or stationery when they could go and just use a template and plug in their logo. So how we're going to really pivot and stand out in the market is to go work deeper with clients and to show value of how you can actually grow their business, not just provide a logo and stationery. It's going deep with them and finding out who their audience is, coming up with the right brand strategy that positions them correctly in the market, and has the right visuals after the fact, that after you've figured all of this out, then move into the visuals and other collateral. So it's kind of taking a step back, going further back before just jumping into design, and like I said, being a partner. So I think if you don't evolve, you're going to struggle as a designer if you're just doing design as a very core service. I think our core services need to be positioned more around partnerships. So that's my forecast, and take it or leave it, but that's where I'm thinking. So the branding process. Everyone is going to have a different process, but just an insight of how I create brands for customers is I'm now going through that brand strategy process. I've only done one or two really deep ones, which as I said, I'm still learning these deeper strategy workshops and discovery sessions, and I'm enjoying that. And I think now that I have these more concrete documents to work on, it allows me to better design more on more on target to the brief, and it really helps the business grow and actually thrive. So coming back to the topic of the talk, it is about making them thrive, and the process of doing that is the strategy. And then the standard stuff that we all done with logos and identity before is getting a list of from a questionnaire. I used to do this, have a questionnaire and get them to fill it out, and there's my brief. But we're not going real deep that way. We're just getting answers from them and being an order taker that way. So that's where I'm at in terms of the process. I get a questionnaire, or I did have a questionnaire, and then I got a proposal, and then I got a deposit, and I did research, I did concept in, then I went into and sketch in, then I went into the computer, did the designs, and then sent them to the client, then got revisions or feedback, did revisions, and repeated that process until completed project was done. Then I sent them the final, or they sent me the final deposit. Then I sent them all the files, and the project's done and dusted, and then I'm there for support after the fact. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't know how much more I'll go into that, but that's it. I think we'll all have our own process. What was I going? I think these are just a few differences. I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, so I won't really talk about more of this. This was just if I ran out of time. So I'll jump into Q&A. I'll come back to... Cool.
So, Jacob, I think one of the questions with regarding to your branding process, something that I think a lot of the people would be interested in is because you know obviously every process has many steps. You know, a client fills in a brief. You know, you give a quote or proposal. You know, there's a negotiation part to it, then you finalize, then eventually your own process. Now, do you use any particular tools to manage this entire transaction? Because, you know, obviously invoicing and payment security and then, you know, contracts. So do you use any third-party tools or anything specific that, you know, to manage the entire process? Because it is a very long process, and when you're working with clients, and then you have multiple clients that you're working with.
So I have a core template in Adobe Illustrator for my invoices, my proposals, sorry. So let's back up. Before the proposal is sent, they've sent me an email, or they've booked in with a discovery call with me. I've already had a chat with them on the phone to talk about my services. And I didn't used to do this. I used to have the questionnaire. I just sent them a proposal, but I didn't really build that relationship. So I'm learning now that that was a big mistake, and I should have been really building relationships. And I was kind of selfish in that way, because I was traveling, and I was like, I don't want people booking things in when I'm traveling. I wasn't so focused on the business because I was traveling. I wasn't doing business the whole time. But now that I'm focused on building the business, I'm building better relationships with clients. And so I have that discovery call. I figure out their needs, and then I can or sell my services and show or build that trust based on what I can actually do for their business, based on my background in marketing, logos, identity, and bringing that all together to help them build their business, not just provide an identity. So after I've had that conversation, really sold myself and how I can help them, I'll have a chat about their budget and set expectations. So there's no well, it's not always I talk about budget, but because I have to crunch numbers sometimes. But sometimes I'll either talk about budget on the phone, otherwise I'll come back and then send them a proposal. They'll have a couple of different options in it based on their needs. And there's all these, there's psychology behind packages and what you can offer them with different tiers. So I often have 3 buckets, very expensive. One that's like a deluxe package, and then like a premium package, and then like an essential package, and then like a basic package. And their price points are very high, affordable, and then cheap. Obviously having different value for all of them. This is just one technique. There's many different pricing methodologies out there. I'm not an expert in pricing, so I don't pretend to be. Chris Dewar is sharing a lot of this at the moment, and Mike Janda. So check out those accounts for that sort of thing. Always tons to learn from other people. I'm just sharing how I've done it. So in the proposal, it's the 3 different options, and this allows the client to have some choice when it comes to working with me. And then after the proposal is sent, then the tools I use, the proposal I've done in Illustrator, and to come back to the tools, I'll send them an email with the proposal. And inside the proposal, I have a link to my agreement, the contract. The company I use for that is Docracy. And for invoicing, I use Xerox, and that's because it just integrates with my business. Before, I used to use PayPal, but now I use Xerox because I just incorporated my company a few weeks ago from a sole trader, so I upgraded my invoicing software, so I use Xerox. I've only used it for a few weeks, so I'm not in a position to recommend it or say otherwise, but it seems pretty intuitive and it's working so far. For payments, they can pay via credit card or PayPal. So they're the only tools I use, really. There's nothing special. There's no other streamlined process. I think there may be better out.
And anything for project management, like, when you're communicating with your customers,
Yeah,
and,
email.
you're sending files, or, they want that,
Yep.
everything on
Sorry,
email.
no secret tools.
Yep. All right, great. So I think we have a couple of more questions here. There's one.
I guess another tool would be Zoom.
You've sort
Zoom
of.
and Calendly, because Calendly is my calendar application, and they can book calls, sorry.
Yeah.
And then I use Zoom for the calls or Skype. And whenever I'm presenting proposals, I'll talk to them on the phone to talk about the proposal, go through it with them, just so they can aware of what everything is what's included. And yeah, so what was the question? Was there anything else? Did you say?
I think no. For me, that's there. But there's a question here in the questions tab. It's regarding the presentation process. Though you did mention that you send them a PDF with a link and stuff.
Yeah. Who is this question from?
There's a question on the top from Shanaz,
yeah. Okay.
who says that. Yeah.
Okay. So, what's your presentation process when working with clients living in other countries with who you can't meet and present in person? Do you send the PDF or present over video call? So, 95% or nearly 100% of my clients I don't meet with in person, and most of my clients are in the US. So I don't often meet with them, but I always try to do a call at least, or a video call sometimes. And when I'm presenting work, I'll always I'll share my screen, so I have control over the presentation. So it's just a standard PDF. I don't do any animations. I probably could if I wanted to, but just keep it pretty simple. Go through a PDF on the screen or video chat when I'm going through the presentation, talk about it and sell it through. I definitely don't. I used to, back in the day when I was starting out, just send the PDF. Bad idea. So I learned from that mistake. Always present over a phone or video call. That way you can read the room and you can really sell your ideas through. So yeah. Okay. I've answered these. Can you repeat the name of the book? Mike Janda is the author, so you can look up him, Lizeth. And Chris Do, I always say his name wrong. Scott, how would you suggest a new design works out their hourly and day rates? I'd recommend checking out that book. Pricing is too big to chat about in this. But yeah, you could, to answer it quickly, you work out what you want to achieve. Say you want to earn 100K a year. How many projects would you need to earn 100K? Divide that by how long you how long you'll work on these projects, and you'll get a rate that would suit your goal. So you have to be realistic about where you're at with your career and your ability to get clients. I'm just looking at the chat now. I think it's pricing psychology, I think. All right.
There's one thing I think it'll be great if you can just add a bit, and I think after that, if there are no more further questions, we can end the webinar.
Yep.
It was regarding the initial bit that you were talking about, being a thought leader, where being an expert, because that really builds trust into your customers, and because as an individual running an agency, how can one do that? I mean, because initially, obviously, when people are starting out, or even it's not everybody's cup of tea. I feel that they can present like you're doing. Like, for example, you're doing a webinar right now. Again, it's because you're a thought leader and you position yourself as a thought leader, and people are coming here to hear you out. So how can others prepare themselves in this sort of a role, or how can they position themselves as thought leaders?
Yeah, I don't think you have to be a thought leader necessarily. You can be a contributor and you just share your thoughts. You don't have to be a leader per se. Eventually you'll become a leader. Yeah. You should be putting content out there and your thoughts out there. You just show your process, show what you're working on. There's always going to be someone a step ahead of you, and there's always going to be someone a step behind you. So people, when you're learning or when you have mentors, you want someone that is above you, someone that's equal with you up here, and someone that you can teach as well. So it's just how the learning journey works, and just put yourself out there and share. Like, I'm very transparent with where I'm at with learning things such as the brand strategy, and I think that has been I just naturally do that, and I like sharing it, and I think that goes a long way in building trust and building relationships and just sharing the journey. And I guess that would be my biggest tip, is just to put yourself out there and don't be shy. I don't like doing videos or webcams or things like that, but I'm like just getting myself out there and getting into more video these days. Like, it's taken 10 years for me to do that, but it's possible.
Yeah. And videos are, I think the thing for what's going on, what's trending right now, isn't it? I mean, because that's how users are consuming content. So I think, and something that I think in one of our other webinars we did with Michael Janda, he did stress on this, that, consumers are consuming a lot of content in different buckets. So whether that's a 8-second clip or a 15-second clip or a 5-minute, so that you have to create different types of content targeted at users, because they're consuming all these different types of content at different times of the day. And therefore, I think for any brand today, you have to be active when you're creating content, and it has to be of, various sizes and types, and videos being one of I think the most essential ones.
Yep. And I personally need to get more into video and share more video. So that's my challenge next.
That's great. Okay. So I think, we've covered all the questions that were there primarily. And thanks a lot, Jacob. It was really insightful. I think a lot of great pieces of information for our audience. We'll be sharing this video on our events page, as well as it will go to all the subscribers today on their email. We had over 400 registrations for this, and so we want to thank you again for taking the time out. And it was really great, and we hope to work with you again soon.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing the other people's chats as well. So thank you for organizing it all.
All right, thank you. Take care. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for